9 ways to retire with confidence. Confidence on $500,000. I did it. You can too. It's not that hard. I retired at 59 as well. Number 1, become a retirement sponge. What do I mean by that? A couple years before I retired, I started watching as many retirement videos as I could, reading as much stuff on retirement as I could. You got to become a sponge, guys. Soak all that stuff up. Now, a lot of the information, which I found out, you won't agree with, right? But there's so much that I found out, just taking in as much information as I could, emptying out the bad stuff, keeping that good stuff. I couldn't help but be better with planning for my retirement, right? You got to soak up as much as you can. Watch Rob Berger on YouTube. Watch Joe Kuhn on YouTube. Watch Two Sides of Fi on YouTube. There's a lot of good advice out there. And again, as I've said in other videos, there's some you might want to stay away from, okay? Just be careful out there. But it just doesn't have to be YouTube. Soak up all the stuff you can by reading. Read your financials. Read the Wall Street Journal. Read, business magazines, Fortune, Forbes. So much information out there for you. Number 2, retire with zero debt. Now, I know I've said in videos before, this is not an absolute, because it's not. You don't have to retire with zero debt, but if you want to retire on moderate income, $500,000 in this case, it sure helps, doesn't it? Now, when I retired, I had basically just a car payment, which I quickly got rid of about 6-8 months into retirement, and I had nothing, no car payment left. I did buy a house once I retired, but as you can see behind me, I couldn't resist this area. And I went to a lower cost of living as well. So if you can retire with zero debt on $500,000, you're looking pretty good. Again, it's not an absolute. You don't have to do that to be able to retire on $500,000, but it'll probably give you more confidence, right? Number 3, make big purchases before you retire. If, for whatever reason, you want to get a great car, a nice car for, $50,000, make sure you do that before you retire. And make sure, if you're going to do that, that you're going to keep that thing, run it into the ground, because in retirement, it might not be as easy to replace that $50,000 car with another $50,000 car, right? You're living on $500,000. It's not going to be that easy. If there are other big purchases you want to make for your children, let's say, make them while you're still working. That way you can easily budget it into what your expenditures are. In retirement, not that easy to do. Believe me, I've learned this. You'll be worried about where is your money going most of the time. So big purchases, not too good to do in retirement. Number 4, perfect budgeting early on. By early on, I mean, let's say, obviously the earlier the better though, right? If you're retiring on $500,000, you need to start practicing your budget and really nailing it down as soon as you can. Let's say late 40s, mid 40s, early 50s. You need to nail that stuff down, okay? Now, as I've talked in videos before, you can do the top-down method or the bottom-up method. The bottom-up method, which means keeping track of everything you spend on a monthly basis, is what I choose. It's more accurate. You do whatever you want, as long as you can keep that budget to, you know exactly where everything's going. Maybe not down to the exact dollar, but pretty darn close. The next one, reduce what you need to live on. I practice what I believe is moderate minimalism. This has worked for me. Anything you don't need, get rid of it. Do you really need it? With me, if I haven't worn something in a whole year, I get rid of it. I donate it to thrift stores because everything I buy is from a thrift store, so why not give back to it as well, you know? And actually it's pretty funny. I have a story where I went in a couple years ago, donated something about 6 months before then, and I saw it at the thrift store, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. It took me a couple seconds to realize, wait a sec, I donated this. I was gonna buy it again. So I put it back. Yeah, donate whatever you haven't worn in the last year. It really helps. Moderate minimalism. Live on what you can live on comfortably, where you don't have to be a severe minimalist. I'm telling you guys, it makes it so much easier. You know, it really does. Retire to a cheaper area. This area you see behind me, much lower standard of living than Los Angeles, where I worked for 30 years and lived for 30 years. Much lower. There are some places overseas where you can go, like there, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there are like at least a couple YouTube channels from retiring in the Philippines. Now, yes, drastic cultural change, right? Some of you, probably most of you, might not be comfortable with that. But as far as living cheap, yes, cheap. He heard my call. You can't really beat some of those stories you see in living in the Philippines. If that's your thing, go do it, man. Go for it. With $500,000, if you're in an expensive area to live, you might not be too comfortable with that. As I mentioned before, as what I'm doing with this YouTube channel, side hustles. If you need to get a side hustle, online work, whatever it is, do it. Again, it's your retirement. You define it how it is. You're retired. You're retired from a full-time job. Anything outside of that part-time, who cares? You're retired. If it'll make you feel more comfortable, you know, I'm trying to do a video here. Anything that'll make you feel more comfortable, get it, man. If it's 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, whatever it is, and especially if it's a passion of yours, take it on. If it's a passion, it doesn't feel like work, right? If it's a passion, you want to do it anyway. You do it for free. So if you need to bring on those side hustles, do it. Who's to say you can't? Finally, what I have is purchase rental properties while you're still working. I had a duplex way back in the day, 20 years ago, maybe even 25. And at the time in Los Angeles, housing prices were going, boo! I bought it at the bottom and prices just started going up. I wanted to relocate to a nicer area in Los Angeles, which I did after about a year and a half or two of owning that duplex. Can I tell you how many times I wish I held on to that? Now, get rental property. It's a constant stream of monthly income, especially if you're in a desirable area, right? If not, might be a challenge to rent it out at times. But if you can get it on a lease, a year lease, a 6-month lease, hey, that's extra income coming in, baby. That's what you need on a $500,000 retirement. Get rental property. Purchase it before you retire. Purchase it in your 40s or 50s or even 30s. You'll be doing a lot better, a lot more confident about your $500,000 savings if you have that rental income to rely on, right? So there you go, guys. There are some ways to be confident with retiring on a moderate income, or in this case, $500,000, or it could be $400,000, it could be $600,000, whatever. Moderate income. There are some ways to do it for you. And remember, guys, we got this. So do you, cheap.